And welcome to the final episode of Essential Finance, a video content series in partnership with bdhSterling, focused on providing financial tips for the Australian business and expatriate community in the UK. I'm Jessica Sullivan, the Member Engagement and Project Manager at the Australia UK Chamber of Commerce. The final episode in our 6-part video series brings together all that we have covered from episodes 1 through to 5, and also sees me welcome Simon Harvey back for a chat. Additionally, we'll also be joined by my colleague, Catherine Wu, Australia UK Chamber of Commerce CEO, who will be sharing her expat reflections and will round off this series alongside Simon. Our valued sponsor for this series is bdhSterling, and they are a key partner for our Chamber member network in the market, given their considerable expertise in financial planning and wealth management. Welcome to you both, Catherine and Simon. Simon, we'll start with you first. It's wonderful to welcome you back for the final episode in this series. When we launched it, you really did set the bar high for your colleagues, and it's been my pleasure and incredibly enlightening personally working with the bdhSterling team on this particular series. Throughout, we've covered planning, savings, pensions, tax and property. Can you perhaps share with us what needs to be on an essential finance checklist, and possibly impart your warmest wisdom or top tip for an Australian living and working in the UK who wants to set up their finances for later in life?
Sure thing. So I guess top of the checklist for us is making sure that we've got clear financial goals and objectives, because that tells us what we're working towards, what we're aiming for, and what our goals are. And then we'll make sure that we've got all of the good essential foundations for a good financial plan. So that will mean developing a budget, making sure that you have an emergency fund, evaluating your insurance needs. And then after that, once you've got those foundations in place, it's really to start to accumulate and build your wealth. And I guess my top tip would be for Australians that are in the UK to make use of the tax wrappers that are available, such as pension funds, ISAs, etc., and how those will tie in with their longer term plan if that is to transition back to Australia. So because we're across both the UK and Australian regimes, we can make sure that any plan that is put in place in the UK can then see them through to their eventual retirement. And of course, I think when people arrive in Australia, in the UK, they won't always know how long they're going to stay, and they might not do the necessary prep work initially because they're unclear on their plans. But it's really, really important that you understand the options that are available to you, but also making sure that you're compliant with the tax authorities in both the UK and Australia.
Magnificent. Thanks, Simon. We've certainly had it reinforced throughout the series from your colleagues, with Stephen and Paul, around planning and how crucial that is to get that right in the first instance and those first early days, and to really think things through and be really considered in how you map out your financial future. Catherine, so wonderful to have you as part of the discussion with us today. You've been in the UK for over 10 years. Could you provide us with your backstory from expat to CEO? And did you think about your essential finance checklist along the way?
Well, I wish that I could say that at the beginning of that journey, I thought about my financial checklist. But I was like a lot of Australians. I came over to the UK in my 20s on a Tier 5 youth mobility visa. At the time, I really didn't realize I was going to stay for 10 years. I thought perhaps I'll stay for a year, maybe 2 years. And my priorities have really changed over the last decade since I've been in the UK, as you can imagine. So when I first came over, yes, I was saving. I've always been someone who does put away a little bit of their pay packet every month. But most of my salary was going on things like trips to Europe and weekends away and discovering London. And over the last 10 years, my priorities have changed in line with my lifestyle. So over that time, I've gotten married, I've bought a home with my husband, we've had a child. And so as you can imagine, the way I think about wealth creation and the way I think about financial planning has really evolved. So I guess further to Simon's point, I've probably moved from having more of a savings mentality to more of a wealth creation mentality. And that's both in terms of thinking about how I make my money work for me or for us, and also how I protect my downside now that my husband and I have built some assets. So did I have a financial checklist when I came over? No. Do I wish I had had one? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, things we wish we knew if only we had a crystal ball. Catherine, what advice would you give to yourself 10 years back when you first moved out here?
That's such a good question, Jess. I think there are a few pieces of advice I'd give myself. First of all, I think when you move from Australia to the UK, it's really important to get to grips with some of the changes between the two countries. And one of the areas that I particularly point to is the difference between superannuation and pensions. So when I came over to the UK, before that, I'd had a job in Australia where I had fairly high personal and employer contributions to superannuation. The pension system was not as developed in the UK at the time, and defined contributions hadn't yet been introduced. So I think making sure that I would have preferred to have been really on top of that, perhaps with the assistance of a financial planner like bdhSterling, to understand how I could have made that transition a little bit more effectively and made the pension system in the UK work for me. And I guess more broadly, I think, yes, I didn't know when I first moved over to the UK how my future was going to look, and therefore exactly what my financial plan should be. But I would really encourage anyone listening to this series, and anyone more broadly, to go and speak with a financial planner, whatever country they're in, and perhaps look at some different scenarios around how you think your future might look. No one has an exactly set future, but I think working through one or two scenarios around how it could look and how you could actually structure a really effective financial plan with your financial advisor is a really sound strategy to undertake.
The shock of COVID-19 has meant that many of us have had to react to unexpected changes to our finances. How can we go about to ensure shocks such as these don't have such a negative effect in the future?
I think for those people at the start of their journey, like Catherine just discussed, the most important thing is to make sure that they've got an emergency fund. And we normally say a good rule of thumb is 6 months worth of expenditure in cash, readily available should something happen that means you lose your income, etc. But for those who are have more significant wealth, I think if they've been working with a financial planner, that financial planner should have prepared them for a situation such as this. Not necessarily COVID, but a situation which impacted global stock markets. And if we've done our job correctly at the beginning, we'd have explained to our clients that there will be peaks and troughs with investment performance. But what's really important is that when there is an event that impacts markets to this degree, that you don't panic, that you understand that it's part of the investment process and that you don't crystallize any losses, because your investments will inevitably recover in value, and as long as you haven't crystallized those losses, you'll be fine. And that's what you should get out of working with a financial planner, is to understand that that is just part of the process.
Yeah, definitely. Those peaks and troughs we certainly can't predict, but we can obviously put things in place to protect ourselves if we're quite realistic about things. Catherine, turning now to how the Chamber has seen the effects of COVID-19 play out firsthand, do you have any advice from your perspective as CEO on how to plan against crisis?
Yeah, it's been a very educational year, I think, for anyone who has run a business or been within a business over the last year on how to weather crisis and how to build resilience. So I guess there are 3 lessons for me now that we're a year on from the onset of COVID in the UK. The first one is really, I think, around accepting a crisis and adapting to it in an inventive and agile way. So I think when COVID first happened, there was a temptation for many people and organizations to think, you know what, maybe this isn't going to be that bad. Maybe we can just bunker down and ride this out. And as we've seen, this has been a really protracted crisis. So one of the things I'm proud of at the Chamber was we worked to very quickly adapt to this new environment. I think you need to accept when an environment has changed and, you know, work like hell to make sure that you are adapting, whether it be like we did, moving into more digital engagement with our members, more digital content to reach them. And I think this series with bdhSterling is a great example of one of the ways in which we pivoted. The second lesson, which I think is very applicable to financial planning, is making sure you do the work before a crisis around your financial resilience. So you never know when a crisis is going to happen, and you can perhaps make educated guesses, but you're never going to know the exact timing and shape of a crisis. So you need to do work between those shocks to make sure that you've got the safety net to weather those shocks when they come. So I think making sure that you're prudent with your balance sheet, that you are putting away some savings in your company to help you get through those bad times is a great idea. And then the third interrelated lesson is making sure that you're doing the pre-work around investing in your relationships and your partnerships between shocks, because actually you can't build those partnerships and relationships anywhere near as easily during a crisis as you can before. And I have to say that, you know, we at the Chamber, we operate as a community, we operate as an ecosystem, and it's really been through the support of our members and our partners and our friends that we've been able to come through the last year.
Magnificent. Thanks so much, Catherine. You bring a very unique lens to this discussion, given your experience and the work that you've done across our member base this past year. Simon, your colleague Stephen discussed the need to plan in chunks of time. Could you expand on this and provide an outline of what people should be thinking about and when?
So I think Stephen was talking about striking a balance between planning for your shorter, medium and longer term goals.
Yeah.
For example, some clients have significant wealth but are worried about having enough in retirement, and they're making sacrifices today that they don't necessarily need to make. Other people, and the flip side of that might be that people have high disposable income, but they tend to live for today and could be doing more for tomorrow. So I think a financial planner will just help you with an objective view on things and your situation, and make sure that you're getting that balance right, so that you are living to a standard, to a good standard today, but you're also making putting away money for your retirement and for your future.
Fabulous. Thank you both again. As I said at the top of this episode, it's been a real pleasure to be able to talk with you and your colleagues, in particular, Simon. I guess in summary, the overarching message I've taken away from this is whatever life stage you're at, it's certainly in your interest to connect with bdhSterling for a confidential chat about setting yourself up for financial success. You're able to visit the bdhSterling website at www.bdhsterling.com for full details. Thank you for joining me again, Simon, and thank you to Catherine for coming into the conversation today. We're very proud to work with our wonderful sponsors at bdhSterling and are incredibly thankful for their ongoing support as members of the Australia UK Chamber of Commerce.